Really excited about our next guest here because our next guest has a host of experience in both the comedy realm, the acting realm, but also the athletic realm. I know how many sports fans out there are excited to hear about somebody who could kind of play a lot of different roles. Joining us here on the show is former kickboxing champion, former NXT wrestler, and current actor and stand-up comedian, Anya Zova, joining us here on the show. Anya, how are you?
Hi, Dee. I'm wonderful. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is a lot of different realms of the world and of professions. You have the athletic background, the comedy background, the acting background. What is more intimidating, going up in front of a crowd and trying to make them laugh, or standing in front of a ring and having somebody try to kick you in the face?
Well, first of all, thank you for doing all the research on me. I'm happy to be here. Good questions. I think more intimidating is still being in the ring.
Yeah, I would imagine, because, I mean, that's got to be terrifying at times. But you've said before that you weren't really too scared because you had good length, right? You always had the height and the length in terms of your reach.
Yeah, I still do have that. I'm still 6 feet tall. I still have my weapons, my legs.
Yeah.
But there's something about ring. It's like, I don't want to say it's like you're risking your life, but there are accidents. It's scary. You're can get knocked down. Your health, it's your body. It's intimidating. Plus, you have a pressure of winning. You have your coach next to you in the corner who's been training you for so long, and he put so much hope and inspiration in you. You have your team who was training with you, so you don't want to let them down. So you have this pressure on you constantly in MMA versus in comedy. It's just me, it's my jokes. I wrote them. So if I bomb, yes, it's disappointing for the audience, but I mean, you know what I mean? Other jokes work, some didn't. So it's just me who I'm letting down, not the team. So for me, MMA is still more intimidating.
You battled to become a kickboxing champion. You had a coach that really didn't want to train you because you were a female. And he said, no, we're not going to do this. And you just kept coming. 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. Finally, he had to start coaching you. You were relentless, huh?
I was. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing such a deep research. Yes, he was very conservative, still conservative. He is a Russian Muslim, and I guess maybe more based on his religion, he didn't want to train girls, and he was very hardcore. He's still very hardcore coach, and he didn't want to take me. And he was the best coach in town. And when I saw him, I was like, I want to train just with him because he is the toughest. He can take me where I want to be. And he was like, okay, you can come in, but I'm not going to pay attention to you. You're going to be just at the back of the room, just follow what the guys do, but I'm not going to be paying attention to you at all. And I was like, okay. And several, it took for me many, many months till he's like, okay, she's not giving up. Like, I literally ignoring her and she's coming back. So maybe there's something there. And now we have a joke. He does teach girls now, but their names has to be Anya. And it's funny because after I left Russia, another Anya came in, and he also didn't want to take her. But then he's like, well, her name is Anya too. Maybe it's a sign. So he took her. She became great. She became a coach herself.
Wow.
And now here's another girl named Anya. So here's a rule. He only takes Anyas now.
That's incredible. He's had 3 different Anyas?
He does, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And when you were young, you didn't really set out to be a kickboxing champion. Did you do this mainly for self-defense?
Yes, because back then, I mean, now still like Eastern Europe, it's not safe. But me growing up, it wasn't safe at all. Like we used to carry as kids like those sprays. If somebody attacks you, just to spray it in their face.
Yeah.
And rape was very often for girls. So I was like, okay, my parents were like, okay, for self-defense, you should do it. But I also wanted to be like a badass woman, like I watched a bunch of spy movies.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, I want to know how to kick asses. That's what I want to do. And honestly, my body was not set for that. Like, I'm too tall. Like in MMA, I mean, I use it to my advantage, and there are plenty of MMA, not plenty, but some like Klitschko brothers, right, for boxing. They're tall, they use it to their advantage. But somehow I made it work,
Wow, that is fascinating. And so when you are competing in the kickboxing realm, are you obviously have to be so driven and so relentless, like you said, just to get inside the ring. Is there a part of you that's always been that way? Like, don't tell me I can't do it, I'll do it. Because in comedy, you're going to get a lot of rejection. You're going to have to win over crowds. People will say no a lot more than they'll say yes. So have you kind of always had that mentality?
I did. I think I was very stubborn as a kid, and if somebody tells me no, I'm like, why no? You know what I mean? Like, just let me try, watch me do it. I always was a rebel. I always was getting in trouble with in school with teachers. I didn't like to follow the rules. It's not that I was doing something bad. It's just like I was questioning everything. Like if somebody tells me this is the right way to do it, I'm like, why? And most of the people cannot explain why. So like, this is how we do it. I'm like, yeah, but why? Tell me why. So I was this like kid that was kind of a rebellious mood constantly. And yeah, I was just like, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? It's just, and I know it's hard. Rejections are hard when acting and stand up. But deep inside, if I always know if I believe I can do it, I don't need anybody else to tell me I can. I'm just going to prove it to others, you know?
Yeah, that's a really great attitude. That's hard for a lot of people. They say if I'm told no, I'm going to keep going. I've got self-confidence. But a lot of people, you hear no enough, or something doesn't break your way, and people go, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe the door closed. So it's a real testament to your attitude and confidence that you were able to break down so many doors.
Yeah, it's just my calling. You know what I mean? It just, you have to do it. And I encourage everyone, because there are so many people that are lazy and it's easy to say no. People say no because it's easy to say no. But, you know, no's, honestly, for me, they just make me stronger because, and sometimes it's true. Like sometimes you think like, oh, maybe this door is not right for me. And it might be this door is not right for you, but this could be another door right next to it, you know, or you create your own door, you create your own building, and that's it, you know.
Yeah.
you stop knocking on others' doors.
Yeah, create your own building. I like that. If the door closes or doesn't open up, create a new building. Just start building a new building. So this takes us into your wrestling world. This is a little bit more than 10 years ago or so. You then transitioned to NXT, which was the developmental part of the WWE. And what happened there? Because at the end of it, you got injured. They let you go, and then you were at odds with the WWE. So how did that end?
Well, it ended with one phone call when I was like, I feel like maybe a few months after surgery, max a month, but I think it was like 2-3 weeks after the surgery, I got a call from Kenyon, and he's like, oh, we're letting you go. And I was like, what? It hit me really hard because I never saw an athlete being released while they recovering from the injury. But apparently it was in a contract, very small letters. I learned my lesson, read your contracts you sign, that they can let you go while you're in recovery. So my advice to everyone, just read the contracts. But I was a new immigrant. I was very trustworthy. I'm like, I mean, they seem nice. I'm just going to sign whatever, you know, it's 30 pages contract. I'm not going to even read it. So I was heartbroken. I didn't know what depression is until that moment. Because yes, I had my law degree in Russia. I knew I can do other things, but I was doing sports all my life, you know, and then I'm like, okay, I'm injured. It's going to take another, because I knew I'm going to need this second surgery. So I'm like, it's going to take at least a year of recovery. So what do I do now? You know, but I figured it out. And honestly, it was the biggest blessing when I look back, because if I still would be with WWE, I would not become a stand-up comedian. It's just impossible because you're constantly on the road. Even if I would want to, there is no time. You live on the road. So it's kind of turned out to be a blessing, what happened to me.
You've talked about how it was so militaristic to train, and it was so relentless to train. So do you consider your time with NXT, was that a positive experience? Was that overall kind of a negative experience?
Oh, absolutely positive. Absolutely. I mean, even though it's really hard, professional wrestling is the hardest thing I ever done in my life. It's harder than kickboxing. It's harder than, I would say, stand-up, because you have to be not just a performer, but you have to be very smart in politics within the company. So you need to be smart and athletic and hot and constantly on and constantly give 100% of yourself. It's the hardest thing I have ever done. Plus you travel a lot, it's exhausting. And I do feel like wrestlers are underrated and they need to get paid much more for what they do, because it's really hard to entertain the people and constantly be on. So
The politics is a hard part of this because, it's run, WWE was run by Vince McMahon, and you had to be in good graces with him. And now he's in major trouble, federal investigation in him. Obviously, he's had to kind of step down. Triple H takes over. But that politics that you're talking about, how difficult is that to navigate, especially if you weren't a wrestler before you kind of just, you got into NXT, you were a kickboxing champion. So how difficult is that?
for me, I was clueless. For me, it was like I ended up in a new world where I had no idea what to do, because in MMA, you just have to be good, right? If you're a great athlete, if you perform well, it doesn't matter if main coach of the national team likes you. It doesn't matter. He can hate you. But if you win, you win. You know what I mean? If you're good, you're good. So for me, I was like, I need to do politics. I need to, and it's not even like, I feel like now I could navigate much better, because if you're good, you're good. But over there, you need to network. And I remember back in NXT, it was all about with who you hang out with. Like, oh, those people are on good terms with main people. Those people, for some reason, on the bad terms. So you need to stick with the guys. So it was, and I couldn't, in my head, I was like, why? But I like this group of people. They cool and they help me in the ring, but I cannot be hanging out with them outside of the ring, because then it's going to look bad. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, it doesn't make sense. I just want to hang out and be friends with whoever I want to be friends. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that for me was the hardest part. And then it also was a stupid unspoken rule that if somebody gets released from NXT or WWE, you're not supposed to talk to them and be friends with them. And for me, that was like, well, I grew up where like friends become my family. Like my friends with who I grew up with, or with who I was doing MMA and kickboxing, they're like my brothers. So it doesn't matter if they get released from the national team. I'm still friends with them. But in WWE, it was a rule like, oh, you're not supposed to be too close with them because they're out of the system now. And that, from my moral standpoint of view, I was just like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right. I just want to be friends and hang out with who I want to hang out, not because it's right for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think because you didn't play politics, or because maybe you hung out with the wrong people, was the reason that they got rid of you while you were injured?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. I kind of was like nice to everyone. I was friends with everyone. I was nice to everyone. I try not to get involved in any gossips. So I do feel like even though I didn't know how to do politics, kind of by staying away from politics, I did the right thing, because I was just like my normal self. I think I got released because financially it doesn't make sense. And now as a businesswoman, when I look back, I'm like, it doesn't feel right morally to let go of an athlete when they're injured. But financially, they knew it's going to be another year of them paying me salary, but not being able to use me in any way. Yes, I could do some promos, but that's not enough. So they just did it for financial point of view. That's what I think. But we can ask them. They're going to give you probably a better answer. Maybe they're going to tell you she sucked in the ring, and that's the reason. We just waited for a good excuse to fire her. Can somebody ask them? I actually know the answer. I really want to know why they got rid of me.
Okay. We'll try to dig around a little bit.
Yeah. Please.
What's your take on Vince McMahon's investigation and the allegations against him?
I didn't follow at all. I know a little bit news from TikTok and Instagram posts, but I never had any. I think I met him maybe once or twice, so I don't have any personal experience. But I guess men in charge are always going to be men in charge. It's man's ego, and they feel they can do it, etc. But I'm going to say more generally, I feel like we cannot just blame men for doing those dirty things, because there are always second part as a woman, right? There are two people involved. So, and if a woman give consent to certain things and then complains, like, we need to ask a woman too, like, but you were part of it. You know what I mean? You could have walked away. But some women choose not to. So I feel like I understand there's also a power game, because he's a man in charge and women has less power. So, but there's always two sides. And I feel like I think it's more complicated. We cannot just blame one person. There's always second person involved.
Mm-hmm. Your comedy is really interesting because you come at it from a different vantage point than most American comics, and you're playing in a lot of American places. Obviously, you're located in LA. You're going to be part of the comedy festival coming up in Burbank in August, but you're also performing internationally coming up in July. On July 12th, you'll be in Zagreb in Croatia. Also in August, on August 29th in London. When you travel the world to perform stand-up, do you have to approach different nationalities, different crowds, different countries differently, or is humor no matter what?
Well, humor is humor no matter what, but we also, it depends where I travel. I try to do a little bit research the first day I get there, like a vibe I get or something interesting that stands out to me, because it's a good icebreaker to point out on something funny and ridiculous that's going on in this country, on that city. But what I realized, and I've been blessed to perform in 7 countries this year, 8 countries. Humor is humor. It's universal language. People laugh on the same language, so it doesn't matter. And my jokes, what I came to realize, are very international. And a lot of my jokes are based on being fish out of water and learning English. And when I perform outside of US, most of the people had to learn English like I did, so they can relate to that.
There was a Russian comic back in the 80s called Yakov Smirnoff. Are you aware of him?
I love Yakov. I actually had a chance to work with him. Well, I didn't know him because he's never been famous in USSR. He became famous when he moved here.
Oh, okay.
So, and when I moved here and I started doing research on comedy, somebody recommended me to watch his clips. I was like, oh my gosh, he's a genius. I just love him. And I got a chance to work with him here in the United States. He has a theater. He still is running his shows in the theater 3 times a week, I believe. I got to watch his shows there. He's still on. He's still working. He created his own building. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's like the Hollywood doors. Some of them close to me. You know what? I'm gonna build my own theater, and people are gonna come and see me. And they do come and see him 3 times a week, and it's impressive.
So that's so interesting. So he was huge here in the States, but he wasn't huge back home. Was that because in the Soviet Union, they weren't allowing American pop culture and American things like that to come into the Soviet Union back then?
I think so. I do believe they just blocked it because he, in a way, betrayed the Soviet Union, right? He left. And even now, like back then, it was stronger hate. But even now, like people who leave Russia, they're like considered be enemies. So I believe they just never promote him. They never spoke about him. Like they just pretended he doesn't exist. And yeah, that's what happened.
Do they consider you a traitor? Somebody that left?
I'm pretty sure. When I just left, even my friends were like, well, you're going to be back. And I'm like, maybe, but it doesn't feel like it right now, you know? And they were like, you can feel the vibes. They feel like I betrayed the country. Now with politics and everything's happening in Russia and Ukraine, they kind of understand why I left. And I was like, I had a feeling something bad is going to happen, you know, the way things were going forward. So now they don't think this way, most of them. But back then I was still like a betrayer.
Is that a bird? Do you have a bird, or is that just a bird out in your day?
I have to show it to you. I have 2 birds, and there's this fat squirrel. I feed. Hold on. Where is the squirrel? Where is this? Hold on. There is a tree. She's gonna.
Oh yeah, I see the squirrel. Yeah.
You see the squirrel?
Yep. I see the squirrel. Yeah. And so you have a pet bird?
I don't pet birds, but they kind of eat what left over from the squirrel. And the squirrel became kind of chunky because I feed it so much. My mom was visiting. She was like, your squirrel is fat. You need to stop feeding.
What do you feed a squirrel?
I buy at first I used to buy like human nuts, but then I found on Amazon like huge bags for squirrel food. It's a mix of different nuts. So my squirrels are great. It used to be 1, now it's 4 that coming in. Oh,
so they've told the neighborhood that go to Anya's house. That's good eating over there.
Exactly.
That's incredible. So you're feeding a whole neighborhood worth of squirrels. So they're all coming. They just keep multiplying.
You know, some girls after like their 30s, they become cat women. I became a squirrel woman.
That's too funny. How have you adjusted to living in LA? Do you like it?
I love it.
Yep.
Honestly, I know that people say good and bad things. For me, LA is a truly city of angels because I met so many angels in the industry that I'm working with. Nature is incredible. It has ocean and the mountains, and I love both. Yes, traffic sucks. A lot of homeless people, it's very sad to watch, but there's something about the city that just fills me up, because when you're on the road you need this place where you can just recharge, and for me LA became this place.
Mm. That's great to hear. I love that you've been able to transition from so many different backgrounds, because it shows such versatility. It shows such an incredible multitude of talent. So to go from kickboxing to wrestling to now stand up, these are not things that normally people weave together. So it's really impressive to see. And your Instagram account is through the roof. You can follow Anya on Instagram at Anya_Zova. So that's Zova. And she's going to be performing in July. If you're in Croatia for a summer vacation, she's July 12th. Also August 29th in London. And then a big old comedy festival in Burbank in August. So that should be a lot of fun to be around a lot of other comics at a comedy festival.
Oh, for sure. For me, comedy festivals became my favorite thing to do. I haven't done them that much, but this year it's been doing more. I did Abu Dhabi Comedy Festival, which was amazing. And when you hang out with comedians, you just learn so much. And comedy is a truly community. And that, I think, what I love about stand-up the most, because no matter where I travel, I end up in a new country. I go to any comedy club and I feel at home, because it creates a sense of community, because we understand how difficult it is, and we're there to support each other, and we're just there for the same goal, to make people laugh. So it's truly beautiful.
Tighter bonds with the comedy people that you're around versus the athletic background that you had, wrestlers or kickboxers, a tighter community with comedy.
Actually, I think it's very similar. Like kickboxing, I had a very strong community. Like my guys who grew up with, they like my brothers. Is the same with wrestling, not so much, because I'm outside of wrestling. If I still would be a wrestler, I'm sure I will be part of this community. But once you're out, you're out. That's the thing with wrestling. I'm sure with stand-up the same. But again, no, even if I'm out, but then I come back, I'm part of the community very quick and very fast. So I feel like, from my experience, like, yeah, stand-up has a very strong community.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, I think that you're incredibly funny, and I think that your stand-up stuff is really, really great, which is why we reached out to you to have you on the show. So bravo. I think it's excellent. And thanks so much for joining us today. This was awesome, and hopefully we can catch up again.
Thank you so much, Jay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
great.